so much, Tatiana and Val. What a beautiful way to start this artist talk. I'm very honored to have you both here in conversation with Clarivel. Welcome everyone who's watching, tuning in. My name is Juan Pablo Siles. I'm the artistic director of Regiones. Regiones is an annual performing arts series, and we promote artistic work and artists with roots in Latin America and the Caribbean. This is our second year, Regiones Central, and this year we're focusing on Caribbean artists. And we're very, very happy, excited, and honored to have these three wonderful people join us today. I'm going to introduce our moderator. I want to thank you, Clarivel, for taking the time to do this talk and moderating this. It's an honor to be in your presence and also just to sort of like learn more about the work that you're doing. Clarivel initiated in 2016 a movement called Dominicans Love Haitians movement. This is an art-based nonprofit organization, and they use various art modalities to unlearn racism and decolonize. Their goal is to celebrate commonalities and honor differences. And with that, Clarivel, thank you, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Juan Pablo. It was such an honor to receive your message and to accept this beautiful opportunity to speak with these beautiful artists, especially bringing together Haiti and Dominican Republic in this conversation. It is what we love to do, especially we need to counteract all these negative messages that are always putting us together. And so it was such an honor and such a privilege to be like, yes, we want to be in the space of these two beautiful, phenomenal artists, be in conversation to really listen to their experiences, to share their experiences with us here, and to really receive your wisdom and really listen to this global conversation so that we really understand our humanity, our experiences. So I just really want to thank you so much, Val and Tatiana, for being with us and being present, and for your artistry. So, want to introduce you, Val. Val is a Haitian electronic music composer, percussionist, turntablist that evokes the musical esoteric realms of the creative subconscious, self-defined as Afro electronica. He incorporates her African Haitian musical traditions into the present and beyond, combining acoustics with electronics and the archaic with the postmodern. He works with a diverse array of artists, including Jerry Allen, Anthony Braxton, and the Harriet Tubman Trio. And also introduced Tatiana Mejía, is a Dominican performer, singer, and choreographer, currently based in Berlin. Mejía started your dance studies in the National Dance School between 2004 and 2010. And Tatiana danced and choreographed for her company Desdoblados and for the international festival EDANCO. He is founding member of the National Contemporary Company by Maria Hernandez. So thank you so much for being here and for your fantastic introduction. We were here we closed ourselves off because we were dancing. We were like, okay, we were experiencing the moment with you. We were like, so just thank you for that wonderful introduction, that wonderful spiritual introduction and opening energy here in this space, which is so much needed in this time, right? In this time and in this energy of so many things that are happening to us as Black people worldwide. And so we just really want to thank you for that energy that you brought into the space. So now I have some questions for you. So the first question that we have for you is, what drew you to your artistic expression? Like for Val, why music? Right? Why was music the thing that was calling you forward? And for Tatiana, like why performance? Performance, singing, and choreography. Although we have seen more on your website the choreography that you create. So, but why that? Why was that the entry into who you are?
Yes. First, I want to say thank you to Juan and thank you, Clarivel, and thank you, Tatiana, for that little, oh, that was so good. That duo thing, right there in the intro. Well, what got me into, what I'm doing is, the Vodou culture, my culture. I grew up with a grandma who is a Mabo, and a Mabo is a Vodou priestess. So, when you're kind of like fortunate to be part of that family, you kind of pick up something from the Vodou culture. So what that means is you either become a singer, a cook, or a drummer, or the person that kind of like like puts things in certain places. So it's kind of like a like a promoter. So my role was always and I was always drawn to the drumming. So that was like my thing. I think I didn't realize it until I became like uh, like an adolescent, like teenage years. Then it dawned on me that wow, like this culture wasn't just it's not just because of my grandma. It's also because it gave me like a purpose. And what I mean by that, it gave me a purpose. Like when I felt like I didn't belong, like moving from Haiti to come here to the States. This was back in like the 80s, and not having anything to like connect to, and then so the culture kept me sort of like whole, and kept me strong, as well. So yeah, and that's pretty much why I stuck to it, because it gave me like a purpose that was bigger than me, and that purpose is to basically sort of bring this culture to the world, so that they know it's not just about sticking dolls and pins. It's also like all these other healing modalities that are within the culture, within the drum patterns, within like the dance movements that we do. So yeah, that's basically why I kind of stuck to it, because it fed my spirit. One, it kept me strong, and and then I realized, wow, this is sort of like the only thing that I have to carry on in this world. So yeah, but the Vodou culture kind of gave me that as a backbone, as sort of like a little candlelight you could carry through the darkness. So that's pretty much why I stuck with with it, and yeah.
Thank you for that. That was a lot of. We wrote notes, so we're going to be asking you some things now
Okay, good.
in our notes. Thank you
Cool.
for that, Val. Thank you. Tatiana, what was your experience? What drew you
Well,
to your artistic expression?
yeah, dance and music was very present in my life, especially in Santo Domingo, where you're constantly going to concerts, constantly listening to music. I was very much inspired by the popular music at the beginning. Then I started in the dance school doing ballet. And then I was introduced to contemporary dance, and this really triggered a lot on me because it was really for me amazing that you could make your own dance, your own movement, and through the movement, really go through many thoughts, and yeah, even meditating. And I think I connect a lot with that. At the same time, I also uh, parallel to the dance school, I was taking singing classes, I was taking music classes, and I even had a like a while that I was having my rock band composing music and everything. But at the end, I dedicated more to the dance. And yeah, after now I moved to Berlin, I'm introducing more the musicality and the voice, and also connecting to my ancestors, connecting more with what I know with folk dance and folk music, and what is it is actually the Dominican music, like how it's rooted, how it developed. I was lucky enough that in my dance school I had many teachers, and they knew about that, they've been investigating, but it's really like in Dominican Republic, not so much information, but I was very lucky to have very good teachers. And yeah, and through that I started to connect to lamentation, and it's now very present in all my dance and all my movements. So for me, yeah, contemporary dance is like a space, or dance is a space to think, to meditate, to even ask questions about ourselves, about how we, yeah, how we coexist in the world, and how we, yeah, go further.
So it's interesting how what we hear for both of you is that this is a very much a spiritual calling, very much grounded in the meditation that there is connecting to spirit, right? That it's not only that is framed inside of also connecting to a heritage that we're going to assume, Tatiana, that wasn't present in the ballet experience. That when you went into the contemporary dance, then you could enter into a space that was where you could find the presence of your, heritage. You could connect to a heritage that may not have been present in the ballet form. Is that something that you think is true, or something that you experience? Not that it's true, but that.
Well, I mean, it's in the combination to have access to also to the folk music and to the folk dances. It's like it's mixed, because also like all the techniques, modern dance, come from the United States. But this is like more my final result, how I connected all the dots, and I trigger this to go back to what is the roots, what I perceive, what is my roots, of course, like through my experiences and my memory.
So thank you for that. And Val, so we got present when you were talking about that the choice is either in voodoo is a singer, a cook, or a drummer. Now, and we were like, okay, so who if you associate yourself as a female, as a woman, which are the ones that are normalized, right? Like, okay, you can be a singer, right? Because you can be a cook, right? But do you normally get to be a drummer? So is this something that is unusual in the sense of who you are and being your expression as being a drummer? Inside of we don't want to assume, so please let us know, is there a patriarchal hierarchy, that also exists in voodoo that would see a drummer as not being something that a woman can take on?
Well, actually, interesting enough, I only got to play because my grandma was the mabo. And I just kept, insisting. I just kept, insisting because, like the thing is, you don't pick the instrument, it picks you. So, once I kept like, persisting, they were like, okay, just let her stay. But in voodoo is like one of those, cultures that it doesn't really see male, female, color, it goes straight to the spirit, because we have some guys that are cooks, we have, so it doesn't really have that. But the thing is with the drummers, you have to keep up. So when I just kept going back and forth and, like relentless, I would go and keep going. And this was the kata, because, we have different drums. And the kata drum is a little bit smaller, and it's the one with the sticks, like tek 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 tek, and that's really hard because if the kata messes up, everyone is gone. Yeah, everyone is just off the rhythmic pattern. So I think I got a little pass because my grandma was, of course, the priestess. One, and I just kept pushing. But voodoo really doesn't have, like, they don't see man or woman. It's not like that, at all. It's mostly like, because you have some, there's even the deities that are sort of like gatekeepers that are sort of queer. So yeah, we don't really have that kind of, too much. Let me see what else. The thing is too, like the men cooks that are in the culture sometimes are better than the women cooks. So it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting.
That is very interesting. Because we've been practicing Ifa tradition, and we know that that it's not necessarily that way in Africa, in Nigeria, so to speak, but because it gets translated over here to this United States structure, where then that starts getting imposed, right? Where then there are these senses of hierarchy, and people look to the Baba more than they look to the East. So we were wondering if that was the case. And yes, in the Pantheon, it's the same idea that there are those that are intermixed, you know, that there is that level of sexuality in the way that it's framed here doesn't exist. You know,
Right.
gender
Right.
doesn't exist in that. So yes, thank you for that.
I mean, I think also that that's what gave me the strength to be, you know, as queer as I wanted, you know, to be, you know, in the world, because in the voodoo culture we don't sort of like, you know, separate any of that stuff. It's like, you know, there's this thing we say tout moun c'est moun, which means everybody is a body, which actually means, it's sort of like funny because it means you're not the body. The body's just a glove. So it's kind of like a mind, you know, twister. But tout moun c'est moun, which means everybody is a body. You're just the body, just like a glove, you know. Yeah, but it's what's inside of the glove, not the actual glove itself.
Very much so in the sense that you're the vessel, right?
Yes.
You're just the vessel, and the spirit that comes forth from you is what is the most important thing.
Right.
And
right.
so in that sense, we wanted to ask you, Tatiana, please, you know, what are the rituals that you have in your life that ground you inside of what you do, what you create, what you were called to do as an artist. So Tatiana, would you like?
I integrate different tools. I do a lot of automatic speaking and automatic movement, which is like going into space for a moment, a state of mind where I just like start to produce and like just let the instinct move me in the moment and how it comes. And usually in these moments, all the time something triggers and comes back to what in my subconscious is like asking about, okay, what is this movement? Why this movement of the hips, or where it come from? And I don't know. I just connect everything of my memory, also images. I call out like images from my childhood. I went many times to the village. Sorry, my English is sometimes searching for the word. To the village where my grandmother lived, and there is a batey there. And usually I was all the time witnessing the gaga and how they go in, and also sometimes following and going also to, usually to gaga rituals, not being exactly part of them, but just going and watching and embracing it in the moment. So I go back all the time to these images from my childhood, from the movement in the street in Dominican Republic, why people move in a certain way, and why people speak the rhythm of the talking. It's I usually just my ritual is also connected with a voice, and just through the freedom of the moment, start to bring different ideas together.
So Val, because we're in our heads, we're like jumping to we got these questions that we wanted to ask, and we're like, oh, we need to jump over here. But Val, like, what are your rituals that ground you in your art?
You know, it's basically the same thing that I kind of used to do home. It's just that, you know, I don't have the same access to, let's say, you know, we have this thing called Jeanty glow. Jeanty glow is just, you know, you take, you know, before when you know, wake up, before you drink, you know, anything or eat anything, you throw, you know, some water, you know, on the ground. You're supposed to do it on the actual ground so that it goes in the earth, because the earth connects you to the ancestors. But since, you know, I can't do that, I'll just do it, you know, in front of my door, and just with the, you know, intentions. So it's similar to the stuff that I used to do back home. I just kind of like remix them so that they could, you know, fit in my, you know, like apartment, you know, kind of thing. The other thing too we do is you see this thing back there's you know, Grand Bois. So it's, you know, the deity for the woods. So I'm very, you know, connected to the Grand Bois. So I'll go to the woods and I'll hug, you know, a tree. I'll talk to the trees when I feel like, you know, there's no one to talk to. You know, but that's because I feel, you know, connected to it, you know. And it also helps, if anyone want to try this out, even if you're not into any kind of, religion or whatever, just if you feel like anxiety, like pick the biggest tree and just hug it, that's, Gambwa, that's, Gambwa's healing and energy. So there's a park close by, I've been going back and forth. The other thing too is Papa Loco, which is the deity for the air. Now because of all this air stuff, I've been sort of like doing prayers to Papa Loco so he keep, the air clear. But yeah, just, I'm just try to apply things that are like, stuff that I used to do back home, but just, remixing it here now, it's the same, similar things.
Thank you for that. One of the things, Tatiana, that when you were, so we have this question that we wanted to propose to you, is when you, and you were, and it was being expressed in what you were communicating around your rituals, like how you, the rituals of the rituals that you create and that ground your artwork. And so we wanted to ask you, do you hear sound in your body when you choreograph dance? Is that part of your process? Does it come first? Does it come afterwards? But you were saying that in the automatic that you're allowing that to lead you inside of that ritual. Is there any point where sometimes music also is what is the impetus for your choreographing music?
Yeah, it's both ways, but in the last years I've been studying music myself, like through the movement. I have also music that is like, let's say, working music, like I'm interested in something and I do some certain music, but then at the end it turns out something completely different. But yeah, I totally listen a lot to my body and to the musicality of my body, especially because I stopped working as a composer, musician, and so I have the feeling that I compose at the same time that I'm doing my choreography. Exactly. Yeah.
So we'll get to that question around artist craft and the around having to leave your art craft or because of monetary reasons or things like that. We're gonna ask that question. So Val, we're gonna ask you to, do you study sound in the body? Is that part of you when you conceptualize your music? You hear sound in the body?
Yes and no. Yes, because once when you're a drummer, you could when you work with dancers, like I work with a whole bunch of different dancers, and even in like a ceremony you can see how the each rhythm like makes the dancer move a certain way. But for me it's not the sound, it's more like a spirit, like a particular spirit that's into like into during the body, and it's expressing itself a certain way. So that's why I say yes and no. I kind of feel like it's more of like a spirit, that is, invoke, or that's kind of like, when you play certain patterns, you're like, oh, now, this is, so it's like something that sort of like triggers, like the spirit, or even sometimes, something that, like triggers something that allows you to be more of who you are. So then it feels like it's spirit, to me. But yeah, so I feel like it's more of the spirit that lives in, the body, not the actual sound itself. But the sound can sort of like activate that, that part of you that just comes, comes to life, or yeah.
So when it's invoked in the voodoo, it is a sense of body. Is that what I'm getting a sense of? Like when you're in community with spirit, then it is the awareness. There's an energy that's getting created where you have to be aware of who's entering and exiting.
Yeah, the thing is, you're not aware who's entering or exiting. That's the thing. Yeah. Oh, and one thing that I wanted to say is, just so we all have it, is voodoo. Voodoo. Yeah, yeah, voodoo. Because if we say voodoo, then we, kind of like helping the Hollywood, stereotype of the pins and the doll, and So
Yes.
yeah, so just so we're like, sending the right frequency, the voodoo. But I feel like it's you can't control it. That's the thing. You're not really aware. Sometimes the drummer is aware because they can tell like, well, okay, that person is going into sort of like a trance state, or sometimes they're doing things. You're like, wait, you're not able to do that if you're not in that state. So it could be like a particular state. I call it like a spiritual state, but it's something that it can be activated by sound, by certain sounds, even if it's like house music, or even, the break dancers. There's certain beats, you put on and the dancers just, so it's just something specific with sound that can activate like the spirit, within. Mm-hmm.
Very, very much so. We have experienced that many, many times, especially in New York City, in the summer, in the park, house music. And it's just, it is like, it is church. It's church.
Yep.
Tuning with the trees and with the environment, and people go into that trance state, which is very much what we saw that was complementary to both of your artworks, where in the sense of spirit that we saw being embodied, tonally, physically, and it was like, that there was that sense. Yeah, that there was that energy that was just emanating in different spaces, like
good,
all around. So
good.
So yes, so we were like, so it was great seeing you together working, and it was just like, yeah, this is exactly what we could see. So we wanted to, or we're experienced. We wanted to experience. So we wanted to ask you: do you think is your art political? Or by nature, who you are, are you political? And if that's if so, what is that? How is that? So Val, if you
okay, I kind of feel like I'm more spiritual, but being spiritual now is very political. Like you have to stand, and I think of course because I'm Haitian, I'm very like, that's my background, that's my blood. It's very bloody, it's fire, it's freedom, we don't want to hear anything else. So that's in my blood. So yeah, but I really feel like I'm more like a spiritual person, less of a political, but because of, where I come from, and who my ancestors died, for me to be here. So I have to sort of take, a stand, but I kind of feel like it's like spirituality can also be like a stronger way to be political, especially these days when like politically correct can mean anything, especially here in this country. From what I'm seeing, I don't know, maybe I'm getting the wrong thing, but I mean it's so much like confusion, so I tend to just rely more on like my ancestors, which is more on like the spiritual thing. And then funny enough, in the Vodou we don't really have like anything political is corrupt. Anything political is very, very corrupt. So yeah, I'm more on the side of like the spiritualist, but I think, for sure, I definitely know where I stand, at the end of the day, being, a Haitian, woman. So, yeah.
Tatiana, what is your experience?
Well, I'm not sure I can say, like, let's say from the point of view of my own experience and how I decided to live my life and the decisions that I made, I think that that it is political. But then, yeah, let's say spreading it to the outside, it didn't really happen. I mean, I made many decisions when I was in Dominican Republic. I decided I wanted to do my own company, and I did it alone, and I wanted to do a whole night performances. And in that moment I wasn't supported, and I have the feeling that I said, yes, I'm a performer, and I also have the right to do my work, to show my work. And this is why in that moment was, okay, it's the first time somebody tries that. And also leaving my hair natural in that time, it was like a very big statement. And it was, yeah, quite hard. Living in Santo Domingo, where you would just get rejected from going to institutions. I wasn't able to work, like to have a side job besides art. Um, and it was, yeah. So I guess I think I have my, since I was very young, I all the time thought, okay, this is for me what is real. This is what I identify with. And I all the time try to reach that and try to embrace it. And I guess like carrying this decision and going forward and saying, okay, I'm gonna do this. This is what my wish is, or it's actually somehow political. Somehow, it feels that I'm all the time contra la corriente.
Against the current.
Yeah, against the current. Like it feels like that, but for me, it's more something natural. It's a necessity, and what I think is like fair, or what I think is something they should look like. And I also experienced a lot of I had a lot of problems with things when things repeated, when the society just said, okay, this is like this because you have to straighten your hair because you have to do this. And then there wasn't such a process of, okay, why is this, or why, for example, why did many, this is deeper conversation, like the relationship with the Dominicans, with the Haitians, and many things that just remain, and just circles around. And yeah, and I'm also like lately working a lot with trying to break patterns of repetition. And this affects a lot because of my personal living and my observations of, yeah, the dailies. In the dailies you get a lot of stuff that's just like transmitted from generations. Yeah.
Oh yes, it's it is it is a battle. It is a battle, especially amongst a lot of Dominican people who constantly are, that mythology that keeps getting reinforced and then doesn't get questioned. Or if you're questioned it, then you're deemed you're deemed being against being anything Dominican. So because you have a question, because you question this narrative that, if you look at history, goes, you make absolutely no sense. What are we really? What are you fighting for? What is this for really? And so yeah, it is a difficult place to have an existence in. And one of the things that we want to say is that you're not going against the current, you're just ahead of the current. So people have to catch up to you. And unfortunately, you're like the salmon, right? Like you're cutting through all of that. Doesn't feel comfortable, but you're cutting through all of that for everybody else who's coming along. And to know that you were not alone. There was an ancestor before you who was cutting that path so that you can arrive in it as well. And that's what keeps over here. That's what sustains us, to be like, we were never alone, and to be like, and we are connected and honoring our ancestors because of the nature of our existence right now. I think it's beautiful, Val, when you're like, yeah, I want to be a spiritualist. I don't want to have to be political. Like, I remember hearing somebody being like, my skin is political. That's it's automatic, right? It's already presented. No choice to you. Like, I don't have a choice. It is our existence is already a political statement. And then when you attempt to go against all the norms, what's the norms, not really norms, then that gets added to it. So. And then we create art so that we can exist freely as we are, right? That is the nature of creating, so that it's like we're not there is no box that you have to live inside of. It is total pure creation, which is a beautiful thing. We have to, even the nature of what we do, even as artists, sometimes is to still unpack what society, how society has changed us. So one of the things we wanted to ask you about is this idea of colorism. You know, like especially inside of there's a lot that's coming up around being light-skinned women having more say than darker-skinned women. How has that experience? How have you experienced that? How have you seen your peers experience that? Those who come in multiple shades inside of as an artist in institutions where you live. Like, what has that experience been like for you? Val, would you like to start?
Yeah. Well, that's coming from Haiti. That's we're kind of used to that because we're like the lowest of the lowest supposedly. As Haitians, it's supposed to be the darkest, the ugliest, the poorest. So growing up in that culture, when I moved here, actually folks always ask me, are you Dominican, because I was light skin. So it's kind of interesting. But because I was, thank goodness, I have this background of, voodoo, you kind of learn to see people's spirit, So my thing was always more like, wow, there's a trick, that was played in like people's minds here. I mean, even though back home, we do have that, but it's more like a money thing, like you could be dark, but if you have, the money, you're, mulatto. But here, when I came here, I was like, wow, this is like, that's the basic idea of, divide and conquer, So if we all have this kind of thing, oh, this one's yellow, the blue, it's just a good way to like, break people up, But I kind of saw that throughout like every different, cultures, not just, my culture, black culture, like I saw how they were like breaking us up, even with, Asians, with blacks, or just all of us, So I kind of see like the bigger picture of like this scheme of like, divide and conquer. And of course, let's start with like, just like, like the little differences, between like a blue shirt, a yellow shirt, a green shirt. So it's always been to me like, wow, somebody's plotting, that is some serious plot, to keep us, in that kind of state. But yeah, I always try, because I see like just, the spirit. So if somebody is, whatever, however they feel, I can see right through and say, okay, I'm not going to bother with this person and just keep it, moving. So I don't really gauge it, too much so that, I don't feed it, but that's, because that's how, we do in, the voodoo, culture, unless, of course, there's like a line that's crossed. Then, we take, action, but until then, we usually just kind of like, you see it, for what it is, and I always saw it not like a black and white thing, but like, wow, look how they devise everybody. Everybody's separate, this, that. And then they go, in within the groups and then break up the groups, So it's yeah, that to me is like, wow, who is thinking about those kind of things? Like, wow, this is, and I mean, I kind of feel like it's been going on for so long. So there's a specific sort of like plan, to keep this kind of stuff, going. I mean, it's a good thing now that we all see it, it's like, but who's behind this plan? Like that's my thing. Like who's behind this plan to keep us all like, broken up, like this. So that's how, I kind of deal with it. I'm more curious with the idea of, and then also, of course, like my mind goes into, oh, it's easy if you do that because then you can control people. Then it goes there. It's like, oh, then I start to see, the bigger picture, So yeah, that's pretty much how I deal with it. Just keep doing, my work, of course, but then being able to see it so that you don't have to gauge it and try to, jump on it or, because then you feed it. So yeah, I just try to look and then, okay, this one, okay, and I've been, connected with so many different people, so many different races, so many different colors. I kind of see it like we all need to look and say, who is trying to do this? Who is doing this to us? somebody or some, I don't know, whatever group or, spirits or whatever you want to call it, is keeping all of us separated. So that's the bigger picture that I want to see.
Mm-hmm. Want to decipher. You want to be like, if you could tear it apart, so you could really get to the heart of it.
Get to it. Yes, exactly.
The heart is the meat of like, when did this begin? Sometimes it feels it, and yeah, sometimes it's like, this started before 1492. We just got the 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 biggest whoop of it, how it changed. Like that. I do get that. Tatiana, what has been your experience?
Well, in the Dominican Republic, like where I lived my whole life, it was very present, but it was so normalized that I didn't even like realize these things. It was just like these hierarchies were like clearly put, like, okay, you're rich, you're white, and you study in a private school, and there was maybe very a few exceptions or more darker skin. This was like, let's say, normal thing, and it took that I started to travel abroad and going to festivals and meeting people from all over the world, and for me to realize, oh, but it doesn't mean that there is like for me to realize that it's not a hierarchy of somebody's up and somebody's down. So like it was like, oh, but this is me. Then and I started to identify more with who I am, So, and last year I went, this in January, I went to last time to Dominican Republic, and I noticed that slowly these kind of patterns are breaking. So by the time that I left, which is like 8 years ago, I don't remember me being in a public place with like more than one person with afro, and now I was like in a concert and it was full of girls with natural hair, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe it. So I think we also have this history from Trujillo, and it's unfortunately remains. We still talk about Blanquito, about Clarita, that you are like white with ass or these things, or they have like, it's still like in the dailies, taking a while to break with that. But this already is happening. It's happening very slowly, but it's happening.
Yeah, it's very true. It's the same. It's this Val, when you talked about it, like you coming here and people were like, hearing that. It always bothers. It's like, do you not understand that we come, that there's this perception of you're Haitian, that you're very dark, right? And if you're Dominican, you're very light. And it's just like, no, actually, like that's not the case at all. So there is no, of course, someone would see you and be like, oh, are you Dominican? Val, right? And this hierarchy, just as much as when we're growing up in the United States, and they would be like, what are you? They would say everything else but Dominican. Not that was like, that's interesting, but the perception of who you are culturally, how you show up, if your hair is natural, or that doesn't, that you just can't be the expression of who you are, right? And that people will want to constantly reel you into being their perception of their reality, versus like, no, we have a reality that we envision, and that we want to see out, out here in the world. So one of the questions that we want to ask, like, why is there such animosity towards Haitians? Why is there such a stigma towards Dominicans not acknowledging their blackness, and especially when it's very blatant? Like, why is that the case? Why do you think that's the case?
The first word is
animosity. Animosity is no odio, pero like that there's already a tinge, you know, there's already, you know, Val was already talking about when you came into here to the United States in the 80s, it was already, you know, the whole idea that Haitians are, you know,
The lowest.
baby, yeah, they're in the lowest, when that's not true, that's not
No,
real.
of course not. Of course
it's
not.
not real, but already it's there's this created narrative that keeps getting framed over and over again. So
Well,
why?
I mean, I think it's basically because, you know, we're Africans, you know, and, you know, we have a certain type of, will, you know, a will to be free. And, you know, we have like audacity, you know, we dare to, to stand up and say no, you know, that bothers, you know, let's say the Spaniard or let's say the French, you know, they still can't deal with that kind of stuff. You know, if you're coming, oh, I'm here too. I'm here. Okay, you're here, and here I am, clean. You know, they can't, you know, it's just, no, they can't really take it. So I think that's what it is, just plain and simple. You know, like we were the first ones to dare to, you know, sort of like even imagine to be free and to actually be free. So I think that's, you know, that is like a scar, you know, for the colonizers, you know, and they couldn't sort of like rewrite, you know, what went down. So it's like a sore eye, you know, in the history, you know, for them, that this little country with the little black, you know, folks, blah blah, kicked our butts, you know. That's a bad one, you know. So I think that's just plain and simple, you know. That's what it is. I mean, we're still, you know, paying for that now, you know, with the embargo. I mean, my country's been like not stable ever since, like really, you know. So it's been like political. And speaking of, you know, political, we go through presidents like it's, I mean, it's like a, you know, it's like a game, you know. So for us, you know, we know that all this, you know, political stuff, you know, this side, that side, at some point they all get it together in the background and have, you know, lunch together. So, but it's mainly because we dare to, you know, be free and succeed, you know. Yeah, I think that's basically what it is.
Which is why in spirit we don't deal with political because it's corrupt. So it's already the automatic, like we already know it's a corrupted system, so we're not doing any of that.
No.
Spirit is very simple. Spirit.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Very simple, black and white, you know, or, you know, sometimes just gray. Then you have to, you know, figure it out.
Tatiana, what is your experience?
Yeah, I think it goes again to this discourse of repetition, this thing on the daily basis when you refer, like how you refer to a person that is Haitian as name calling or things. This is something like you grow up, you're listening to it everywhere, and everybody's saying the same thing, and it's just, it doesn't change. Yeah, it's. And somehow it's very difficult to get out of this thing that you know that it is in this way, you know. Somehow I have the feeling that not being normal or not doing what everybody's doing, like mobbing or like things that, well, I get emotional, but it's very difficult to to try something new and to try to, because sometimes I analyze speaking with my parents and say, do you think it's okay that you're treating this person like not like in a human way, or do you think it's okay it's like this? And they say no and this, but then it's like a lot of things happening that it just remains, and it's like a circle, you know. And yeah, but let's hope that things also, like I follow a lot of uh, uh, books, and I see there's a lot of talks in the States, and with you, Clarivel, I'm super honored to speak with you, because it's like his experience is something that we don't do in Santo Domingo. Yeah, like Alana Lockhart did a lot of conversations also fortunately she passed away. And yeah, it's something there that we acknowledge, but it needs to be, a change needs to come. Yeah.
So we just got chills. Just like spirit is with us. It's just we're present to, in some respect, it's just like COVID-19 is horrible that it happened, but on another level, it's like because it happened, there's been so many people now who are doing this, what we're doing right now, like you know, talking about our experiences, talking about our Blackness, and so we're kind of honored to be participating with, because we see a lot of people in the Dominican Republic, reconocido, who are talking, like having conversations, feminists having conversations, like, like it's just being like, we're not going to be silent. Like you have attempted to silence us, and we are not going to be silent. And it reminds me of so many journalists, especially in Haiti and DR, and were killed because they were speaking against the system, that they wanted to provide the truth, that they wanted to give people a counter, that they wanted to provide a way of seeing, and that they were silent, and that we still have those forces that want to silence, but they can't silence the multitude of people who are speaking out. You can't silence the outspeaking. So we, so we're honest to be in this conversation, to be one of the voices, one of the multitude of voices who are speaking up. Again, knowing that we're standing on the shoulders of our ancestors, being like they were constantly showing up. Which is why they called them cimarrones and maroons, because they were like, yeah, we out.
Yep.
We out. We're not going to stand for this. I don't. We're. And so to know that that is the energy that we constantly are like generating, and that they are those forces that do not want that. They do not want us to know about our liberation, and that is why we are here. And that is one of the questions that we wanted to ask you. Actually, was like, even inside of this, because you as soon as you were like, don't call it voodoo, because that calling it voodoo is the personifying that United States or European ideology of and corrupting the actual embodiment of voodoo.
Yeah. Voodoo, yes.
Voodoo.
Yes. Yeah. It even feels different too when you say it. Yeah. Because sound, it's important because it evokes things. So yeah, it's important.
Absolutely. And we're going to be in the mirror practicing that from here on out.
Thank you.
Absolutely, because you are absolutely correct. Like the sonic, what we say, that is what gets created.
Yep.
And that was the exception of Dominicans Love Haitians movement. It was like we are putting this into the world, so that as the many times that you say it, that this is the reality, that we counteract what is enforced. We're alchemists here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And if you just think about it, I just had like a quick thought, like just what we did in the beginning. That island itself, if we get together, can you imagine what that island could be like? If we just work together, can you imagine just like how, when we did the intro, me and Tatiana,
That's what we're talking about. It's like, hello.
Like together would be so strong on that island, but then again, it would be hard to control us on that island. So that's the other stuff to think of. Divide and conquer. It's just one island, Hispaniola. So it's just something, to think about.
It's very, very much, and that is what we want people to do over there, is to think about it, Right. To think about it, and not think about it from a United States perspective or from a European perspective. Really think about it from like an indigenous perspective. And because yes, we could be so much, we could have so much more than what we have now.
Yeah.
And so I guess we answered the question that we were. And so we wanted to, one of the, and Tatiana, you kind of brought this up. There was a kind of a listening that we had of this. And so we wanted to ask, so do you consider art a luxury? Do you consider it a privilege to create, or for it to be sustainable, to have studied it, you know, because here in the United States in the 70s, art programs were being taken out of school. Mm-hmm. So you, which then created a lot of nonprofit agencies creating art programs so they can bring it back. And so do you think that you consider art a luxury or a privilege for some?
Yeah, like to study art is, yes, a privilege. And I was very lucky enough. Also, my parents are artists, and that's why I could have access to school. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in my future, or it would come in a different way. But yeah, like in the Dominican Republic, it's still like, yeah, very little people have access to art, and also to, again, to folk music, to roots music. Like in the school, you don't know. They tell you only that what's the popular music, but they don't explain you like how it developed and where it come from, and connect to all of that. Of course, it's also because of religion, and they try to avoid that it connects to like Santeria or connects to other stuff, and that's why it's like taboo. But yes, it's unfortunately it's still is, yeah.
So you hear that Catholicism is still very much enforced in that perspective. And yeah, thank you for that. And Val, how has your experience been?
Yeah, for us, Haitians, if you get a chance to go to school, it's definitely like a privilege, But for the arts, I feel like it's your birthright, I feel like that's your birthright, and it's also like part of like a spiritual path, So I have a whole different kind of view of it. But if you do get a chance to go to school and like study, that's a privilege. Yes, yeah. But in Haiti, when you pick up the art, the art actually picks you up, and then it helps you to like develop, So that's part of like a spiritual path, And then most of the artists there's no school, for art, so so you don't really get to study art in the schools, back home. Like everything I've learned was because I was like fortunate enough to have a family that was Vodou family, and I had access to all the drums and everything else there. But yeah.
So similarly, right? That it was because you were already in a family of that
Yes.
you had access to.
Yes.
Otherwise, it is not what is. It's not a guarantee. Or
Yeah.
if the spirit really calls you, but then you have to activate that energy.
Yes.
Because it's a calling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's similarly here. It's a luxury. That was our experience growing up here. Thankfully we were in a high school we went to a high school of performing arts. So we had the luxury. It was a privilege to be there and to be immersed, and knowing that's not everybody's experience here in New York City. So yeah. And also similarly, how do you shift the narrative? Because this is the narrative that we know that has been here. This narrative that constantly says that artists have to suffer monetarily, like for their art. That artists are constantly poor, or living, or that you have to make a decision to work here in order to pay for what your craft, or suffer, like Tatiana, like suffer building your own, and people believe in who you are. They would provide you, with support. Like, how has that been for you, Tatiana? Would you like to answer that?
Well, yeah, I guess I it's something that I haven't thought about, and I don't see it like as, I don't see suffering.
Mm.
I see also it's just somehow then I can use the art to be creative to do the art. So it's like a double layer. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, it could be a better, let's say, more space, like let's say a system, especially for people that go out of art school, like what it is to be an artist, like it's very different from what you have in the school. Like maybe it could be a different way, like to go into the world, you know, to but I guess yeah, everybody's just find their own ways, and I think also these difficulties provide us the possibility to be even more creative and even to put out our work uh, in a very valuable way. I guess I think. I mean, for me, I think yes.
Wow, what is your experience been like?
Well, I have like a like kind of off sort of way of thinking about it, only because in Vodou, everything that you do for the spirit, and the spirit feeds you.
Mm.
So, and you're not supposed to be doing it for the money. That's the thing, So you're supposed to do it as a service to, you know, the spirit, like the spiritual world, your God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, right? So, when I came here and it was hard to pay rent, I was like, what? How am I gonna? I was like, how does this work? It doesn't not working. But funny enough, funny enough too, part of it is, if you really like devote your whole life and you're pure enough, and you're lucky enough to be able to be accepted, that your offer gets accepted, somehow doors start to open up. So I did have like some rough little patches there, but I mean, I have to say those were the best times because I learned so much, and like I was able to, because New York gives you that little extra. I didn't have to be like that back in Haiti. Trees. I have my food, whatever. But in New York, I had to be like, and it kind of helped me to grow extra like senses, so I can smell things. From a far away, I can I can tell like, oh no, 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 not this cat. Oh no, 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 not this gig. So it just gave me so much that I can't say that it was suffering,
Mm.
but you're supposed to actually like the art is supposed to be the offering that opens doors. So after I went through that little time, I started to of course, like you never give up. You always keep with the prayers and with the rituals, and somehow doors started to open up, and I started to get gigs here and there. So it's somehow, if you're really fully like pure, and you like the intentions are pure, like when I'm making something, it's specifically for like Fueda or for Zaka. It's not for me, it's not for my friends. So in that way, like things happen, and it's like like magical, but it's only because I also believe it, because if you don't believe it, it's not gonna work. You're still gonna have to hustle to pay the rent.
I love that. So what I hear both similarly, I love when Tatiana was like, I don't see, so like not suffer. It gave you that creative push, right? Like that creative push that might not have been there, because now there's a you're using another sensory,
Yep.
another organ, another organ, whatever that organ, to be like, oh,
Yeah.
we. And also I hear, like I hear the invoking, like the prayer, the invoking, and also the invocation inside of yourself, knowing
Yes.
your own worth and what you can bring, that what who you are needs to be expressed out here, that people, that has to be, that the universe will take care of you, because they know that expression will support someone else. So we like that. We like the shifting of that. That it's not a suffering, but it's a opportunity, a creative opportunity to align with universe, with your highest self, and also to expand your own creative um, imagination and force, and a force and expression of who you are, and that is an opportunity constant elevation. We like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you both for seeing it in that way, and that we need to have more conversations so that people can see it in that way. Like, let's extract it out. So Juan Pablo, are you back? Are you back with us?
I'm back here.
Is it possible that we can ask one last question?
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So our last question is, inside of this, there's this idea of high and low art, especially in museum settings. This idea of like that there's a hierarchy to what's seen as more valuable than less valuable. And do you consider that with your craft, that there are certain dances or music that are considered, folk, and therefore they're folk, but they're less valuable? And you make choices. Have you made artistic choices based on that perception? Or I don't think that's the case, but we want to have you answer that. But have you made artistic choices based on that perception that your artwork would be seen as high or low art, or if that's even something that you cared about at all? Bob, would you like to answer first?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I mean a lot of stuff that I kind of don't like, I still check out just because I want to get like a taste of what that is, just so I know, and then I could teach my students or something. But I don't see art as high or low, but I do know there's certain art that has like a spiritual thing, and there's some art that's just sort of like junk food. It just has like a different taste. So I think of it of like different tastes. Like if you want, let's say, some French fries, you may want to go for like the more, commercial stuff. If you want something to feel, like like you drinking, like pure water, you may want to go towards, like something that's more, spiritual. So that's how I kind of see it, but I don't see it as high or low. Yeah.
Good. That's good. That's the thing where you don't see the suffering either. That's in
Yeah.
it's in alignment with that.
Yep.
Tatiana, how do you experience it? Or
Yeah, as well as Val, I like personally, I don't see like high low art, like but I do get affected, like not affected, but uh institutions sometimes are establishing, like, let's say, a frame of how this art should be like, and I have the feeling like yeah, that sometimes it can compromise the kind of work that you actually want to show or you want to uh, give. But yeah, again, it's a challenge of being creative with it and trying to still navigate within and try to make change. Also, that the institutions a little bit understand more, because sometimes the institutions don't understand so much about what is going on with the artist. And yeah, it's a matter of fact just to keep on doing and trying. But yeah, for me, I'm inspired also by a lot of different different artists, amateurs as well, and yeah, I'm very open. I don't see it so like, yeah.
that's good. That's good to have that perspective. I'm so happy to be with you, both of you, to be like, let's see those obstacles as what they are.
Right.
and keep creating art
Keep
no
moving.
matter what. Keep having our voices no matter what. And be in the spirit of, like, let's call Catherine Dunham and Maya Deren, right?
Yes.
In the spirit of being like, we don't care whatever you have said, we're gonna, and Zora Neale.
Yes, Zora Neale. Yeah.
Like, F y'all. We're doing our thing. We're gonna do what speaks to our heart, and that we know needs to get said, gets told, gets created, and that is what is the universe is constantly pulling us forward to do that important work. So We want to thank you for this conversation.
Thank
And
you.
for us embodying that energy, and for all of our ancestors who have are constantly, all of our spirituality, all of our elders who are constantly pulling us forward towards liberation and towards freedom and towards that self-creation,
Yes.
being that vessel of constantly being anew. So honor you for that.
Thank you, Clarivel.
Thank you, Kaliel. Ai bobo.
Bobo.
Yes.
I want to thank everyone for being part of this. I really appreciate this. Is exactly what I intended to do. Is I think there's so much value in perspective and, you know, the meeting of the minds and just sort of creating dialogue to further whatever our intentions are. And I take away from this art together with spirituality and how important that is and how important that should be. So I really appreciate your time. I also wanted to thank Ruth for interpreting this session. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ruth.
And thank you again for being part of Regiones. I invite everyone to check out the work of Tatiana and Val. Just go on to our website. We have a huge page with all of the art from all of the artists this year. And later today, we're going to be at Maria Hernandez Park. So if you're in Bushwick and you want to pick up a copy of the publication that we released, please feel free to do so. We are going to social distance. We're going to take all the health precautions. That's very important for us to say as well. But yeah, we look forward to more conversations like these, and hopefully next year we can all gather and actually combine. You know, I've been hearing all these you know, relation between art making and food, and I love that. And I think next year we just need to like gather for a cookout and share our ingredients and just sort of move forward. So again, Val, Tatiana, Clarivel, a million thanks. I really appreciate your time, your ideas, your thoughts, your artistry, and thank you everyone for tuning in, and we hope to see you at the next one.
Thank you, everyone. Be safe. Stay safe.
Thank you. Bye.